This is one of the rare statements when most of the developers agree. Open source is great. Why? Because you can contribute and consume amazing code and libraries. By using readily available functionality that has been already tested, you can speed up your development process. But, yes, we always have a but. When we talk about open source, the source code and the data of the direct and indirect vulnerabilities are openly accessible to hackers too. What that means is that the hackers know what methods from your open source library, when called from your code, can make your system vulnerable. Does it sound crazy? Yes, it does to me. How would you navigate the situation given that your project might use multiple such libraries? How would you determine which of these you should be concerned about? I mean, which of these your code actually calls? All of these are good questions, but I don't have answers to these questions. Our speakers today definitely do. Hi everyone, thanks for joining in for another IntelliJ IDEA live stream. I'm your host Mala Gupta, and now let me add our speakers to the stream. Hi Ori, and hi Yaroslav. Pleasure to have you present with us today.
Hey Mala, thank you for having me.
Likewise.
So let me quickly introduce both our speakers today. Ori is VP of Product Management with Checkmarx, and Yaroslav leads he's the head of security with JetBrains, and he strongly believes in including security as an integral part of the development, and probably the reason why we have this session today. So, Ori, a quick question for you. When we were talking last time, you mentioned something about Lego, that you like to build Lego. So, what is it that you recently built?
So I'm a huge Lego fan. It's something that, it's my hobby, probably related to why I'm in product management because I like to build stuff. My
Wow.
last set was the new Lord of the Rings set with over 6,000 different pieces. It took me 4 months to complete. And now
Wow.
I've switched to the new Viking Village, which was released like 2 months ago. So this is on my Q4 target for finishing before the end of the year.
Wow, lovely. A lot of friends that I know in the Java community, they love building Lego, and they usually talk about a lot of things that they have built. I haven't really started doing that, but probably sometime. And Yaroslav, we really love Yaroslav because he plays drums. So Yaroslav, do you have a band of your own, or how does that work?
Yeah, we are like I'm playing in a local band and we are now recording an album, but it's our like hobby thing. So I hope we'll get it ready next year. Yeah, so probably next webinar I could like do an advertising of something we created.
That sounds really interesting, and I look forward to buying one of your albums at my local stores. All the best to you. So, before I let Ori and Yaroslav move forward with their session, I wanted to share some housekeeping details with all who are watching. Please use the YouTube chat to post your questions. We'll try to answer your questions as you post them, and our speakers will also take a break to do so. And the session is being recorded and will be hosted on JetBrains, on IntelliJ IDEA's YouTube channel and JetBrains Twitch channel. So if you haven't already subscribed to our channel, now is a good time to do. And if you like today's session, which I'm very sure you will, do not forget to like the video. And now let me add Ori's slides to the screen, to the stream. And all the best. I'll be backstage and look forward to learning from you both.
Yeah,
Thanks so
thank
much.
you, Mal, for the introduction and for like having us here today. I would like to give some context and to share some insight on how it started. So back in like a few years ago, when we started improving supply chain security of our product, we like tried tools around some like what's available on the market, and we like bumped into some limitation. I yeah, and they essentially they didn't cover some of our scenarios, and like and also the issues we've seen are it took when you speak of vulnerable dependencies, it took a few steps or like a few complicated steps to update one into fresh version, into a safe version. Um, so you should look at some tool outside of your ID. You should get some context of vulnerabilities, and then like ask a developer to upgrade it or to upgrade it yourself. And we wanted to have it a no-brainer thing, so essentially to make it easier to do. Also, like some of technologies we used and we supported in our ID weren't like they haven't been supported by what we've seen around. And like also the feedback loop thing, when you introduce a dependency and it turned out to be vulnerable, you only become aware of it later at the at the like product building stage in your CI. And this is something we think we could improve in our area. And like the last but not least, as I've noticed back then, a disconnect between developers and security specialists. So these were two groups of people who weren't speaking, and this is these are the issues we wanted to address with our solution, and this is how we come up with a package checker plugin idea. So, and the thing is, we at JetBrains, we have an idea how to do good tooling, how to do probably best tooling for developers, but we don't have much of idea on how to gather information about all vulnerabilities of all packages, and that's where we partnered with Checkmarx. So we know how to do tools convenient for developers, and they know security, they know that subject, and the line is we do tooling, we create plugins and like other products, and Checkmarks provide us with the data, which we then show our users. And this to me looks like a decent, like a productive collaboration when we bring two worlds, together, and shorten time. We reduce time, which is um, which one needs to fix a vulnerability in their source code. And we with that release, with this autumn release, we help uh, people to evaluate things better, to evaluate vulnerabilities better. And this is where I would like to pass the word to Ori, and so he could share his point of view on that and their position. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Yaroslav. So, hi everyone. Thanks again, JetBrains, for having me. I'm Ori. I'm the VP of Product Management at Checkmarx. As Yaroslav said, we are the application security leaders. We've been since 2006. Our company has a goal and the dream to help developers write secure code. And by partnering with JetBrains, this is how we are able to reach probably the largest developers community in the world through JetBrains. Now, thank you, Mala, for bringing my slides. I want to start and just making sure, before we jump into the specifics, to kind of explain where we are, playing, or what does it mean to secure a cloud native application, right? So Mala mentioned open source, and we have source code, what is also called as custom code. We break our application into microservices. We have APIs, we have infrastructure as code. I mean, applications today are so complex. We have so many moving parts. It's no longer, one huge monolith. Yaroslav also mentioned, the software supply chain. We package that as containers. We have orchestrators that help us, scale using Kubernetes or any of the others. And most of the applications are cloud native and deployed on one of the different clouds that exist. And this is, the world that we're playing of software development. And, with digital transformation, it means that probably there is more code in the world today than ever before, simply because every company is now becoming a software company. Now, the players that we have as part of the development life cycle and the securing application, let's call it like that, are three main players. First of all is the CISO, right? The CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, he's responsible for managing the risk of the entire organization, the entire enterprise. And then we have the application security team, as part of the security organization in the CISO, and their goal is to help define the tools, the processes, to see that vulnerabilities are getting remediated. And at the end, we have developers, where developers, they care about velocity, quality, and efficiency. And we will talk about security in a second. Now, today, in as we work, as Checkmarx work with our customers, and kind of the approach that we bring to the market is to build trust between the three different entities. Why? Because we will talk in a few minutes about why noise is becoming the number one risk for a development team in order to improve security. So on one side, we have the CISO that is overseeing everything on security. On the AppSec side, their goal is to make sure that the most critical vulnerabilities gets fixed, and developers, while most times, and I might be exaggerating, are not being measured on security, we need as the tools that provide the ability to bring all the information and bring security to developers. And it's only by combining the three we're able to build trust, because on one side, we don't want to waste the precious time the developers don't have. And on the other side, we have to manage the risk. So it's all about building the trust between the three personas. And how are we able to do that in order to help developers, in order to build the trust? First, we have to have the ability to prioritize, okay? What would make the most impact on the business? What would reduce the risk? Then we need to make sure the developers have the tools, but also the knowledge, means that they know how to write secure code, how to remediate vulnerabilities, and what to do when they are now being asked to fix something. And the last thing, and I think JetBrains is a great example of how we are able to do that and provide ideal developer experience, is to meet developers where they live. Because one thing that developers hate is context switching. So if you are in the IDE, you want to get all the information. If you are now as part of a pull request, you want to have the information there. And this is a critical part of a successful implementation. Now, at the end of the day, what do developers want? Okay, developers want three main things. One is efficient. Okay, developers want to be more efficient. They want the tools to help them be more efficient. Developers also want immediate value. Okay, a tool should help them now, not later. Okay, because of velocity, because of running fast. And the last thing is they want the tool to be easy. They have to keep it simple. They have to try it on their own. And if it's not simple and if it's not easy, then they will probably not use it and go back to using other tools. And what is the number one problem in DevSecOps, or not even only DevSecOps, but in general? What's the number one problem that we see today with successful security implementation? It's noise. Now, what does it mean? It means that let's take even a simple application. Okay, you have a cloud native application, you scan it with source code analysis, open source, and infrastructure as code. Okay, let's keep it simple. Each one of them is finding 20 vulnerabilities, and for the sake of the argument, let's say that all of the 20 vulnerabilities that each tool finds are true positive, which means that they have a real issue. It's a real vulnerability that you need to fix. This is now 60 vulnerabilities that you need to prioritize, your development team needs to remediate. Now, are all 60 vulnerabilities have the same importance? Probably not. And this is where things get messy and where noise is becoming the number one enemy of application security. Now, what can you do or how can you help filter the noise? By correlating, which means that by taking different parts of the application and the findings that the tools provide, you are able to provide new insights. So you are able to reduce the noise by 90%. And today we are going to talk about exploitable path and why it's really important for you as developers that it can help you reduce the noise of your open source vulnerabilities by probably 80, 90%. Now, before handing it over to Yaroslav, just to explain how exploitable path works, other vendors and other solutions call it differently, but in general, the idea is very simple. You are able to correlate between source code and open source and identify and help your developers focus only on the open source vulnerabilities that are being called by your source code, and by that, helping you focus on those first and leave the rest to later and probably never. And with that, I would hand it over to Yaroslav to guide you through how JetBrain has done that by utilizing the partnership with Checkmarx. So, Yaroslav, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And to reiterate on what Tori mentioned, this noise, often when you just scan, for example, an average source code, an average like project, you have a lot of issues found, and then like you show it to an average developer, and they have their work. Like apart from dealing with vulnerabilities, they often have other work to do. And when you choose between like a feature and some like 100 vulnerabilities you need to fix, it's easier and more understandable to deal what you with features than to get to vulnerabilities. And to help with that, to help with prioritization, we've brought the the data, we brought the exploitable path opportunity from Checkmarx into an IDE. And this is the list of tools which, like from this autumn, which support this exploitable path thing, which has this data um, inside themselves. Yeah, so and I'm going to show you demo later. Um, like, and this exploitable path is expected to help a developer to deal with noise, and it could help prioritizing dependency updates. Um, so you could check what's exploitable and do the rest later. I'm not saying you shouldn't upgrade what's not exploitable now because it could become exploitable later, but at least you could decide on your current area of focus and deal with that first, and then like move to the rest. Um, so, and I'm going to show you some demo, and if you have some feedback or some ideas, some questions, please don't hesitate sharing them in comments. So the demo.
So, Yaroslav, maybe before moving into the demo. Mala, do we have any questions up till now? This was
Yeah.
kind of the intro, and now, Yaroslav will show it to you live. So any question from the audience, Mala?
Hi, Ori and Yaroslav. No, until now we don't have any questions, so probably I could take them another 15, 20 minutes as you would ask me.
Awesome, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. So one additional thing we have since this autumn, I think we've moved these vulnerable dependencies to problems window to like the problems tool window, so you could see what risks your project has with a brief description of a vulnerability inside the tool window. You could still read more information about that on Checkmarx website. It's available here in the context menu. Yeah, so you could choose a vulnerability, and it opens. It opens. I'm sorry for. Yeah, it was wrong window. Yeah, it opens on the Checkmarx website, and you could read more details here, like about the vector, about like CWE and advisories which are available for a certain vulnerability. So you could read more on Checkmarx Developer Hub. Yeah, so back to the demo. The exploitable path thing is expected to show vulnerable API of an open source library you are using, right in the code where it is defined. With that, you could you could go to a file with a declared dependency and fix it there. So essentially, you could update it in an affected version right away. But before that, I would like to show you the inspection which you could call to see all the vulnerable paths, all the exploitable paths in your project. So to make it slowly, so run inspection by name, then vulnerable API. So if it's Java or Kotlin, you choose it plainly. Then if it's Python or JavaScript, you choose other items. So you run vulnerable API usage, choose probably whole project or whatever scope you want, and then you see the list of exploitable path in your project. So here we see that all like both of both of um, methods are uh, bringing you to a single library. So what you could do is to upgrade that library to a safe version and like reload Gradle thing. And then as this second library, it doesn't have any, it doesn't bring any like exploitable paths, so it's not exploitable on your project. What you could do is to ignore this dependency as not exploitable. So there could be other reasons. Um, you could even like specify it and ignore it with some miscellaneous reason. You ignore it, and this then could be shared with your colleagues through through inspection profile. Um, I'm going to show you where you could find that. So it's changed through a file, but if you want to modify that, if you want to, for example, no longer mute a certain package, you could remove it from there or add it here. The scope of muting is module, package, and the reason. Well, scope is module and package, because in your project there could be different modules, and like this is the way to manage it. Yeah, so you could remove it here, but I will keep it here. So you see, there were two vulnerabilities to deal with. Now there's none, which is probably a good thing to have. Yeah. So and the same the same way it's done in WebStorm. You could also go to declare dependencies. It's you could even see that it's from handlebars and verify stream. So two exploitable dependencies, two exploitable vulnerabilities you could fix by upgrading the related packages, related dependencies to like in an affected version, and the rest, what's not exploitable, we could double check that through this inspection. Um, and it says it doesn't found it hasn't found anything, so we could mute the remainder with the reason it's not exploitable. And all colleagues who work on the um, on the same project, they are expected to have this inspection profile in the project shared. Yeah, so that's the current approach. Uh, and yeah, so if you have any feedback to share, um, it's an engineering design. So go to our U track, choose project idea, choose subsystem, build package checker, and share your feedback. We would really appreciate that. Also, if you have any feedback, share it in the comments, and we'll see what we could do. Yeah, that's that from me. Um, so, Ori, or probably Mala, do you think you could ask questions you have?
Yes, Yaroslav, we have one question, which is from Andreas, and he's asking, is this already available in IDEA 23.3 or still to release?
I'm sorry for not specifying the version in my presentation, but yes, this is available from this autumn's release, which is 2023.3 and further.
Okay, so I'll let you move forward with your presentation. Thanks.
Yeah, but that's that. I mean, that's what I wanted to share. Probably Ori has something to add, or
No, I mean, I think it's really awesome that every developer can now check for that in their IDE. I can tell you from Checkmarx customers that are using our platform, it's really, it's a lifesaver. And I can share a story if we have a couple of minutes. So, almost 3 years ago, there was Log4j. I'm sure that everyone here on the call still remembers Log4j. And then, it was actually exactly this time of the year, the entire Western world was ready, to head into end of the year or Christmas vacations. And we all of a sudden started getting called from our customers. How can you help us? I mean, what can we do? And this was, the highlight or the time to shine for exploitable path, because by exploitable path we were able to help our customers, and now it's available to every JetBrains developer to find and to understand where they need to focus, what they need to remediate first. Because if it's exploited, then okay, that's probably top of the list. And this is how we were able to help our customer back then. And many of our customers are able are to this date use that, and it provides everyone so much value, so they can focus first on the rest and focus on the rest later. So this is also just to share some from our own experience as well.
I also believe that this exploitable path is a powerful thing in like prioritization part, and like you can also call the inspection, this run the inspection, and see all the exploitable path, and really start working on them first. And it doesn't require any like specific um, security knowledge, or at least it requires less security knowledge because the security knowledge is there as a part of IDE brought there by Checkmarx.
So, Uri, if you don't have any other thing to talk, I had a question for you.
Sure.
So first one is the comment. I really like your comment about developers not being kind of rewarded enough for including security considerations as part of their development, which they should be. So that was a great statement, and I understand how it falls into the development cycle, because we kind of sprinkle security towards the end of the development cycle, or when the bugs actually kind of start trickling in, or when on to be worse, it's hacked. The system is hacked due to multiple issues. The other point, I was reading about how you kind of rate the vulnerabilities that are present in different libraries, and we also talked about in another place, how, because the code could be written in different languages, you follow different procedures to rate those. So how does that work? How complex is that?
So I would split my answer into two. Okay, first of all, there are, I would say, the traditional rating. Okay, CVSS, and what is already available today. However, there is one main thing that is missing, and we are already seeing that, and it's also adding to the this type of information, like the CVSS, the ability or the extra layer of exploitability. So there are new type of formats or standards. VEX is one of them, EPSS is one of them, and this adds another layer on top of the regular rating. Because if it's a 7.5, okay, so what? You will probably have hundreds of 7.5 and hundreds of 8 as part of your open source, simply because this is how fast open source is moving. And we know today that companies are pushing vulnerable code to production simply because they don't have time to fix. I'm not even talking about fixing everything. I'm simply talking about fixing even the top 10%. So adding this exploitability layer is, I believe, where most of the prioritization would come. And there's also something that we will not probably discuss today, but another layer is also to bring um, context from production, and this is what is now called in the industry code to cloud. So, for example, if we talk about API security, and maybe Yaroslav, in our next webinar, let's talk about API security. um, where do you start? Okay, do you start with one API, or why not take insights from runtime and make sure that you focus your development team on the most used API? Now, it doesn't mean that you will not get exploited or it will not get a breach through the rest of the APIs, but at least from a risk point of view, you are starting where it matters most. And today, this is what's critical for all development teams, that they have to fix what matters most, because nobody has time to fix everything.
And something I would like to add to it, like this exploitability thing. Like, for example, there are 100 developers, and for example, 10 security engineers and 100 vulnerabilities. And to fix them, developers sometimes ask, well, show me that it's exploitable. So all the 100 vulnerabilities, you have to go through each one, try to exploit it, and then to like with that you could convince the developer to fix that, which is there. I don't believe there are sufficient security specialists out there to use that approach. And that's where tools like this one, like exploitable path feature in the ID, and like Checkmarx tools, that's where they come handy. So you could automatically check the exploitability of a certain thing, and prioritize stuff, and focus on what matters, and like try and clean up the rest later.
That all makes sense. And Ori, there was another slide in your presentation which I really liked about developers like wanting to be effective developers, and they want to kind of solve the problem now and now. It's like because it's like we kind of bookmark a lot of things, but we never revisit them. So that kind of thing. If you want to help me now, if you want to help me now. And the other one was about make it simple so that I could use it. So that was a great slide and a great message. So Yaroslav, I have a follow-up question for you based on that slide. So I understand when we talk about an ID which is as powerful as IntelliJ IDEA, I could see multiple options when I am doing any task. So how do you kind of make that more simplify? If I'm using the right words, how do you simplify for a developer to use those security features? Because when I right click on an option, I can see a lot of things. So is it about making it more context sensitive, or what were the special things that you did with the UX team probably?
The core idea of all this thing to like and this bringing two worlds together is to make a vulnerability easier to fix than not to fix. Like essentially, you see a warning, you click two buttons two times, and this is fixed. I understand that there could be in some cases it's not that easy. Like major version upgrade, it requires like additional housekeeping, and that's complicated. But in many cases, like this is like a minor update is sufficient, and that's two clicks. You don't need to do anything else, just two clicks and it's fixed. And this is like the idea we wanted to implement, like to make it easy to fix things. In terms of what you mentioned, the context, um, I think this is a great idea to implement further. Currently, what we currently have, we just show an exploitable API, an exploitable path within the code, and let developer analyze the rest themselves. It might be that in the future we could like get more context, figure out more context, and use that for um, like to evaluate whether a vulnerability is like whether we should tell a user about that. For example, if there is no exploitable path, we could just advise them like more in a less intrusive way, probably with a less level of severity. Um, that might be a way to go, like for future. But meanwhile, and I think it's the current state of the industry. So you should think of a context yourself and figure out whether you could postpone that or fix it right away. And that's, I think, what makes security uh, feeling complicated for some developers, testers, managers, whoever, for just for people.
It totally makes sense. It is definitely
Yeah,
a context.
and
Yes.
I would actually also add, on the three on what developers want. One of the main discussions I had with our customers is, let's even take open source vulnerabilities, okay, that are easier to fix, right? Because in most cases you just need to update or to upgrade the version. Now, the amount of work that such an upgrade can create for a developer is actually remarkable because
Yes.
they now need to run regressions, things might break, and some or most open source libraries don't keep backward compatibility in some
Yes.
cases. And then this is where we see the clash between security and development teams because again developers want to be efficient and want help now, and if now I'm introducing or I'm fixing a vulnerability which would make the security side of the house very happy, but on the other side it generates like I don't know 3 or more or 4 more days of regression and fixing, That's where developers say, leave me alone. I have my own, user stories or whatever they have, bugs they need to fix, which is perfectly understandable, and this is where we need to help them be as efficient as possible.
And that might be, well, like on our side to help them. I mean, to help them figure out regressions right away. So if you update that, you get that effect. It might be like there's, I think there could be further potential for development of our tooling together and of our partnership. Um, yeah, uh, yeah, that's that.
That makes sense. So, follow up on the question that was originally asked.
And,
So, Andrea
and,
says,
and
great feature. Sorry, you wanted
yeah,
to say
sorry, I
something?
wanted to add something on top of the above. So with that tooling, I don't believe we
Mhm,
could fix like every vulnerability on the planet, because there are cases which create like dramatic amount of housekeeping work. However,
mhm,
if that helps like even 2% of developers, 1% of developers to fix their vulnerabilities easy, that's still an improvement to the whole industry, to the whole developer community, even if it's not the dramatic impact to the like to people. So it's, yeah, it's very
And
fruitful.
absolutely. No, no, no. That makes sense. And also, if some of the developers start with the practice and they know that it's not so hard as it seemed in the initially, of course, I think a lot others would follow. So I think that would be a great shift if we do that with
You-
this feature.
Yeah, Mala, what happens most times is that it's like
Mhm.
unit testing. Once
Yes,
you are
yes,
very afraid to get started, but once
yes.
you do, you can never stop. So this is what
Mhm.
usually happens also
Mhm.
with security.
Absolutely. So I wanted to show that comment again. Andrea say great feature. So thanks for providing this. And there's another question by Mioscha, if I'm pronouncing the name right. There should be an option instead of ignore, which is mute until a secure version is available. And a follow-up message is like ignoring it means it's out of view and stay as a vulnerable dependency.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, I think we should consider that idea, because yeah, it's or for example, mute until someone tries to use a vulnerable and exploitable path from a library. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Sounds good. We'll
Yeah,
think about it.
Yaroslav, I mean, we call it snooze, okay? Because you want to snooze it until, first of all, snooze, let me sleep on that. I will go back to that, but then until we have a fix is also another option. So,
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
So I think this person can also go to UTrack and log a feature request for IntelliJ IDEA, and that would be probably a better way to kind of keep track of whether the suggestion is being worked on or not, and also see how if any work is being done on them or when. So
Yeah.
all of that. Yeah.
Also, if there are people who support your idea, they could vote for your
Mhm.
issue, and then you see that you and we see that there is a demand for that feature.
Yes, absolutely. And Ori, as you've seen with most of the projects, when we talk about the origins of any project, any developer started working on, it was kind of trying to take care of some issues. And then, of course, it blossomed into a whole library and, of course, helping others. So, is there a story behind this feature as well by Checkmarx? Any pain point that the original developers were trying to address with this feature?
you mean exploit specifically on exploitable path? You mean?
Yes, yes, trying to, yes.
Yes. So it was mainly based on what we just discussed because we understood that noise, and it's by the way, it's also called alert fatigue because developers are
Mhm.
actually exhausted with the
Yes.
amount of findings. And
Mhm.
so we wanted to help kind of navigate through the noise. And because when Checkmarx started, even before the JetBrains partnership, we had a platform that had both SAST and SCA, and we wanted to correlate. And correlation is Checkmark's answer to reducing noise. So we can correlate data, which is the results, but also metadata, which is the calls and everything else. So this is how it was
Mhm.
born. Um, and this is where we're also investing a lot in future correlation. I showed some of those today already with the connecting to cloud or production resources. So this is where we how it was born and where we are headed.
So, Yaroslav, if there are any other plans for addition of more details to the feature you would like to mention?
Uh, we have some ideas, but we
Mhm.
need to first test them whether,
Mhm.
because there are certain limitations in an IDE. For example, there are as we it's not a server where you could run everything and forget. It's
Mhm.
an ID. It's a user machine where although we are moving towards remote development thing, it's still a user machine where you have performance limitation and where you have limitations in how long a certain job, so to say, could work.
Mhm.
Um, that's why we need to experiment first, see whether it's possible, and then release something and do the next webinar on it.
Okay, that makes sense. So we don't have any other questions. Okay. Oh yes, we forgot to bring the QR code. So let me just add that to the stage. Oh, I think again me are doing that at the same time. So everyone who's watching the session, please submit your feedback on the session. That really helps us to improve the future sessions that we plan. And I'm also posting a link to answer the survey in the chat, so that you could click on the link and um, submit your feedback. And on that note, let it stay for a few seconds. And if Ori and Yaroslav, you have any closing comments,
If
or
I
do
if I may add, if you have any like feedback or ideas on the plugin and you find the like filing issue bothersome, you could ping me
Mhm.
on LinkedIn in a more natural way. Um, yeah, so that's that.
so
Yeah,
so we will.
and same here. If you want to continue to talk security and application security, feel free to hit me on Twitter or X as it's called today. And again, Mala, Yaroslav, thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun, so thank you. And until the next time, at least from my side.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Yaroslav and Uri, and everyone who's watching the session can view socials of Uri and Yaroslav on your screen right now. As they said, please feel free to connect with them. And with that, I would like to thank everyone who's watching. Thanks for your participation. Thanks for asking questions. And yes, do not forget to subscribe to our channel. We have the link on the screen right now. And with that, I would also like to thank everyone at JetBrains for making this possible. And do not forget, we have one question. Okay, so probably not related to the session. Okay. And yes, stay tuned for our next session, which is on 25th January, Thursday, by Dimitri, in which he'll talk about Helidon and virtual thread. And until then, bye bye.